and I align them together and be like, okay, what is plausible and what is not.
Put the mic
So
closer
I
to see
went,
how it's gonna pick up and adjust it like
yo.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I look at things like what is okay, what can actually been that and what can actually is not, and then I'd be like, okay, because I'm not gonna be like, oh, Abraham didn't exist. You know what I'm saying? There's no proof to tell me that Abraham didn't exist.
Right.
You know
But
what I'm
you
saying?
said like as far as but okay, you have the biblical the history according to the Bible of Abraham, but then
Then you got
outside of
secular
that,
history, yeah.
it's not really a lot of history to say that he existed.
Exactly. But it is history out there that can be like, oh, you know what? It's possible, very, very possible, based off migration periods, based off these Canaanites and these eventually people, becoming Israelites, based off these things and these stories that they have. Because you gotta remember, there's a lot of these stories that was compiled, they was compiled way after Abraham, way after
Right.
Joseph, way after,
Okay,
these
so
things.
to that I would say this, right? So because a couple of things, right? So for one, you can correct me based on your knowledge, but from my understanding, you wouldn't expect to see the story of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob written in the history of other nations, like in detail. You might get mention of them, maybe, but I wouldn't expect to find the story of another nation written, of one person from another nation written in these other people's history. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, for example, if you go into American history, you're not going to find the story of some famous Russian that did something in Russia during the same time period. You know what I'm saying? Even though he existed, and and if even if the foreigners that come to America, that's the story for their. He came to America to XYZ. That's not going to necessarily make the history of America, even though it might have happened. You know what I'm saying? So on that end, then that's one thing, and then the other thing, when you talk about the history of Abraham, or these stories are compiled much time later, right? Where I reconcile it and understand it is that happened during the time of Ezra, after the Babylonian fall, and when the Medo-Persian Empire took down Babylon under Cyrus the Great, that was prophesied by Isaiah. He sent Ezra, Nehemiah, and them to go back and rebuild the temple. And according to the book of Second Ezra, the Most High put a spirit on him and four of the brothers to rewrite the Torah, because the Babylonians had destroyed the Torah.
Now, what you're saying is that's true. Now, according to biblical understanding, that's what happened. Now, we gotta remember this: all nations, when they're recording things, they did it back then, they do it now. When they're recording things, when they're putting things, they gonna embellish certain things to make so we gotta okay. Now we gotta be like, okay, because we searching for the truth. We searching for the truth. So since we searching for the truth, we gotta be willing to be like, okay, some things in the Bible may be like
their version of it.
Yeah, their version of
it.
You got
my side, your side, and then what really happened.
If I tell the story about King David, his archaeology would say, yeah, King David did exist, archaeology wise, because it's tablets that was found.
Right. When archaeological evidence of his existence.
Yeah, from it's tablets during the Sumerian, kingdom, where they got tablets saying, yeah, we destroyed.
They mentioned King David,
destroyed
other nations.
King David's son,
right?
One of his sons, and he said from the house of David.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So these are tablets that's found that's saying that mentioning the house of David from other nations. So we know that it would be weird for somebody to call themselves the house of David if David didn't exist.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That kind of weird. Not saying that can happen like that, but
right.
But yeah,
weird. But that's historical proof that this person did exist.
Yes.
Outside of the Bible.
Outside now.
You got other people's
exactly
history, other nations' history that's mentioned in this person. So you say, okay, that's kind of proof positive.
That's
this person
proof.
Exists.
Now to say that King David had this vast kingdom during his time, that can't be corroborated with archaeology. Now, not to say he didn't have a kingdom,
okay,
but to say he had this that when we read in this, now this is why I'm going back to the embellishment to make things look a certain way.
I want to speak to that. I want to speak to that.
Though.
No, because it's you say that because we was doing some research, me and my wife and my children, we was going into the scriptures, and one thing I realized, and it's funny, and I was telling my wife this, is that because you've been to Israel, so you can attest to this, right? So the city of David, how big is the city of David? Bethlehem is small, right? Like it's smaller than this neighborhood, or about the same size as this neighborhood.
It ain't the big city of David ain't big.
So what I realized was this: is that what we call a city today is. What we call a neighborhood today was the size of the cities back in the Bible. So when the Bible talk about these cities, they really about the size of a neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So when you talk about David's vast kingdom, what was vast to them, to us would be relatively small.
And then you gotta think about it. If I'm writing something about my forefather and it may not have been that big, you know what I'm saying, compared to other kingdoms, you know what I'm saying. When I'm writing it, I'm gonna put a little oomph in it, you know what I'm saying.
Okay, so but to that, but it might not have been big compared to other kingdoms, but from my perspective, this was the best thing on earth. Like, especially because mind you, they didn't have internet, the people didn't travel the same. So this what they have known. This might have been what they know. They might not ever seen other kingdoms. They may not never left the land of Jerusalem to see and compare, you know, the kingdom of David to another kingdom. Say, oh man, our kingdom ain't that big. So as far as they, you know what I'm saying, from their perspective, that's just one way to look at it.
Yeah, but it definitely wasn't how we would read it in the scriptures. That's what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? And this is not me saying that David didn't exist. This is not me saying that David didn't have. It wasn't, as we
illustrious as
exactly.
It was.
We're writing things down. You know what I'm saying? We making things sound a little better to give us our.
Let's back up then. Okay, so let's think about this then. So when the scripture talk about the kingdom of heaven coming down to the earth, it's going to be 4 walls. It's going to be a big cube, the way it's described, but there's 12 gates, right? How big do you think it's really going to be? Because it might not be as big. Because see, we read it and it talks about it's the kingdom of Christ. It's His kingdom, but it might be it's just as big as Jerusalem.
Yeah,
a big cube come down on Jerusalem, and it might not be as big as we think. Like it might be smaller than the state of Texas. Like, man, I thought it was gonna be a king. I thought it was gonna be this big, and it still could be, all this stuff, but it might not be as big. So I'm just looking at different.
A lot of things is metaphorically, and a lot of things is is meant to have meanings behind things. You know what I'm saying? Now, for example, it say the kingdom will have streets of gold. You know what I'm saying? That's hot. If the sun is shining and you walking on gold streets, you gonna burn your.
But from my understanding, there's not gonna be a sun. And the Revelation tell you there's not gonna be no sun or no moon. Christ is gonna be the light of the city, so it's not gonna be like that's the way. But I hear what you're saying, though. Like from a practical standpoint, I hear that.
Yeah, and I mean, and I don't want to because we gotta understand that we're living in a real world with real things. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And what we write down in book, because we can write things down and we can, just like we write rhymes, we write lyrics, and we do metaphors, and we speak the way we speak in our lyrics. You know what I'm saying? So it's similar to that. Yeah. Now versus us living it out, you know what I'm saying? It can be a little different. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Us living it out.
And I don't know this, but it just seems like they could just be. I'm sweating already. It could seem like me. It could be a matter of perspective. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm thinking about because when I was growing up, right, I'm from South Park. That's from my perspective at that time. If I wrote about South Park, it's the hardest neighborhood to ever exist. Exactly. It's the realest people, the hardest people. So and I ain't never really been outside of that. You know what I'm saying? And so. For me at that time, this is what it is. South Park is what it is. And if you ain't South Park, if you ain't from there, you ain't. You know what I'm saying? You one tier below. Yeah. And I mean, it's to the point to where if I went anywhere outside of them, it's like I would say, man, I'm from South Park, and that to me, that means you better you know who you're dealing with. Yeah. If I don't care if I'm in New York, the Bronx, wherever, Marcy Project, hey man, I'm from South Park. Yeah. To them, that don't mean nothing. Yeah.
Nah, you right. You
know what I'm saying? But in my mind. When I say that carry weight.
It's like you mentioned it's depending on somebody's perspective.
Right.
Now 1208 BCE, okay, that's when Israel was first ever inscribed in anything, and it was inscribed in the Egyptian record, right? Now, in this same Egyptian record, it's something you said that's I'm gonna wrap around with. Yeah. You said that is based on people's perspective. Now, in this Egyptian record, they have a stela, and in the stela, they naming the different groups that's in the land of Canaan, and they mention Israel, and they say we laid Israel to waste. But how can you lay Israel to waste when 300 years later you got kings popping up that the Sumerian kings saying that they're fighting, right? Okay, and they mentioning the house of David, and they mentioning the house of Israel.
It's funny you mentioned it because I actually read that history. I was reading about that because on Facebook, I be going back and forth with some of my old school partners. You know what I'm saying? And I ain't talked to them 20 years, and now all of a sudden they anti-Bible. You know what I'm saying? And so they bring up all this stuff, a lot of historical stuff. And so, and I was telling him, and I think you kind of illustrated this, but the Egyptians were known for lying about their defeats. Yeah. They don't record their defeats. They have they've been historically proven to embellish situations, lie about their defeats, twist the story up to make themselves look a certain kind of way. So that was definitely a practice amongst the Egyptians.
Yeah, and
but you're saying that's kind of a practice among
all the Sumerians.
Everybody gonna make their own people look good.
Exactly. You know, and make their opponent look worse than what it actually is. Right. So yeah, I mean, it's a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what it. So as historians, you know, we don't try to be like, okay, I'm gonna put the Bible history over regular history. I'm gonna put regular history over Bible history. We look at it like, okay, let's look at it and let's evaluate the whole thing and see what is actually there in the truth. Because all nations got their ways.
Right,
even
right.
us, we got our ways.
Right.
You know, so
let me ask you this thing: is it a matter of detail that we're talking about? Because a lot of I look at because I've seen so much accuracy in the Bible. Like, you know, it says, like, you know, I always bring it up and I can never remember the nation. I think it was the Hittites. But for a long time, there was no archaeological evidence or no evidence period, no historical evidence whatsoever of the Hittites. Exactly. And so a lot of the detractors, the naysayers, they use their argument, say, well, you know, the Bible talked about this people, the Hittites, and they never existed. Exactly. And then in the 80s, I think, or the 70s, they actually kept digging around, and they found the Hittite civilization. And so over and over, you start finding, you know, a lot of the detailed stuff, a lot of stuff they keep unearthing over and over. You know what I'm saying? And so is it? Are we talking about a matter of detail, like how accurate the history is in the Bible, or?
Yeah, I mean, that too, because even with that, like what you meant about the Hittites, now. As of what we have now, so we focus on what we got now, and then to be wise in what we say, we would say as of now we don't have this history yet. You know what I'm saying? So as of now, we got to deal with what we have. Now, if anything else pop up, then anybody, if any history pop, anything found, we should be willing to be like, oh wow, you should change your understanding. Like, okay, that actually happened. You know what I'm saying? Because it can be corroborated with things that's found out of the soil. You know what I'm saying? So that's big. Archaeology is one of the biggest things. You know what I'm saying?
I want to say this too, though, and I get your honest response to it. But when I think about archaeology, I think too that, but you know, it's a big piece, right? It kind of. It's the physical evidence that this thing existed in the past, but it doesn't tell the whole story.
No, it don't.
It don't tell the whole story. So just, you know, taking that into consideration, because I'm thinking about the argument with the fact that there's no historical record of Moses and the Israelites leaving the Exodus. Like that's not in the Egyptian history. But I watched this seminar. These people was breaking it down. And you might believe, but in the back, who was in the back of the audience paying attention? Divine Prospect. He was back. He was there, like he was watching, and you know, he paying the audience. I'm like, that's Divine Prospect. So, but it was these dudes, and they was breaking down the history, and they were showing how that the historical timeline, right? That's really the issue when it comes to not finding any proof of Israel in Egypt, because there's tons of proof.
Yeah.
But every time you find the proof, they say, well, that can't be that because it don't match the timeline.
Yeah.
And so they dismiss all the evidence of Israel being in Egypt during the time the Bible said Moses and the Israelites were there, because the timelines don't match. And so he was saying that there was, and I forget the details, but it was a guy that found, I think, a king's list or something like that, and it was two different kings, two different times, but their names were similar. And he found this king that would, if you go with this particular person, everything would line up. But he assumed it was the same king from a different time. And he just said, that's it. And then ever since then, everything, all the historical timeline of Egypt has been based on that point going forward. And that's what kind of distorts the whole history of Israel being in Egypt. Do you know anything to that?
Yeah, it's a matter of what people are looking for. So things is wrapped around Pharaoh Ramses, you know, when it comes to the history with certain things. But like I said, it matters what you're looking for. Okay. Yeah. Now, if you're looking for Israelites in Egypt,
you're not going to find that.
Right. You're not going to find that because Israel didn't exist.
Right.
There
was no nation called Israel in Egypt.
So what you're looking for, then you gotta okay. Now you gotta go step back to okay. Now, Canaanites. these Semitic people, coming from the land of Canaan, ruling in Egypt,
under Joseph. This is during the time with Joseph, right?
With the biblical nerve would say Joseph.
Yeah, Joseph,
you know what I'm saying? During this time, so you got these Canaanites ruling in Egypt. In history, they be called the Hyksos. They ruling in Egypt. After they got kicked out of Egypt,
supposedly kicked out.
Well,
they left.
They did.
One way or another, they left.
Historically, they got kicked out. It was campaigns, but what people don't really understand that when these campaigns happen, this is when Egypt put their full clamps on the land of Canaan. Okay.
That's when they was the superpower of the world. They ruled. They was ruling the world.
So they put their full clamps on the land of Canaan because they were trying to subdue all the rest of the authority. You know what I'm saying? So now, this happening for a span of 300 to 400 years. You know what I'm saying? This is around a certain era.
Yeah.
All right. Before it turns into another era of a timeline. All right. So now they call this the late Bronze Age. All right. Mm-hmm. So now, when Israel was first named a nation, according to a stela, you know what I'm saying, this is 1208 BCE. So now we got to look at things like, if we're going to go into Egyptian history to try to find Israelites, then you got to understand that it wasn't no Israelites until a certain time period. Mm-hmm. So what was Israel before they said, we're going to call ourselves Israel? You know what I'm saying? And then when you go into that information, then you can find these things. You know what I'm saying?
So what were they called? Were these the sons of Abraham? What they call it? They
call themselves these were
the sons of Jacob.
You got different names of these Canaanites. Okay, of these you got different tribes of Canaanites. Okay, you got some of these people called the Shashu. You got some of these people maybe called the Hyksos. You got some of these people called it's just what it is a conglomerate of, because being a Canaanite is you living in the land of Canaan. Okay?
Yeah,
That's
right.
all it is.
I'm glad you clarified that because because right now I got a partner. He's like, well, did you know that Yahweh was a Canaanite God? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's another thing that's been coming out lately too. That, you know what I'm saying? He was a storm god of the Canaanites and something like that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting what you're saying now that all that means, a Canaanite just means anybody that was in that land.
Exactly.
Now, according to the biblical narrative, that land was promised to the sons of Shem. And then the sons of Ham moved into that land and set up shop all that time. And then the Most High sent Abraham to kind of set up shop there, and then he established a nation of Israel to go back and take over all that land.
Yeah.
But going into Egypt under the famine, they would have been considered Canaanites from wherever, just somebody from the land of Canaan.
Yeah, if we want to take the Bible narrative in consideration with history, you know what I'm saying, we got to say yes. When we look at Joseph, going into Egypt, now when you look into regular history, you're going to see that it's actually pictorial pictures and stelas of Canaanites actually coming into Egypt. All right, around that same time that the Bible narrative say that Joseph came into Egypt. And not only that, you see people coming into Egypt to do trade, people coming into Egypt as servants or looking for work. You know what I'm saying? These are Canaanites, coming in, from the land of Canaan to go into that land. So now, not to say that it may have been somebody named Joseph, you know what I'm saying? But when we look in history, what do we see? What Canaanites rose to power in Egypt was the Hyksos.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That rose to power in Egypt. So now Joseph could have been what we know today as a Hyksos. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Now, even with these Hyksos, there's names like Jacob that's found. They call them Hyksos, they call it Hyksos scribes that was found, okay? So you got these scribes that was found, all right, and they got Hyksos king's name on it, like Jacob, Yaqua. Okay, it got these Semitic names on there.
Right.
It got a Semitic name named Beni. You know what I'm saying? Could have been Benjamin. You know what I'm saying? Could be these things. But so you want to take these things, but okay, let's rightly divide the word of truth.
Right,
you know what I'm saying? Okay, now if
rightly divide the history.
Exactly.
In this case, right?
Yeah, right. You know what I'm saying? So let's say okay, now Joseph could have been one of those kings, those first kings of Hyksos that ruled, So that's possible. You know what I'm saying? So we gotta, as Hebrew Israelites, we gotta be willing, or just as believers in general who believe in the Bible, we gotta be willing to be like, okay, the Bible narrative may not be exactly how it was in true history, okay? But it is what it is, okay? You know what I'm saying? And that's the truth with it. And then we willing to accept that, then we willing to accept more truth when it comes to, what it is.
I gotta be honest. I don't know. I'm willing to accept it. I gotta be honest. I gotta keep 100. Like I'm listening. I'm like, because it's hard for me not to take everything from the Bible first and then say if the archaeology or the whatever historical evidence they have don't line up with the Bible, they just they're either missing something or they're being dishonest about something. That's my first line of thinking. But what you're saying is fair. What you're saying, like let's look at it objectively. You know what I'm saying? And non-objectively, right? What was it?
Look at
objectively.
objectively.
I forget one of them, right? Y'all, excuse me, I'm sorry. But cause I'm thinking objective, subjective, but I think we want to look at it non-objectively or objectively. I forget. Hey, I'm recording. We're recording. What's up? Okay, all right. We'll wrap it up in a minute. So, but yeah, to be fair, what you're saying is, we gotta to look at it from a non. Not subjective, right? We want to be objective, not subjective. There we go. Yeah. And so, to be fair, you just take what's there and then see where the evidence leads. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But being honest with myself right now, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm sold out on the Bible. You know what I'm saying?
That's good.
But I have not done the historical research. You know what I'm saying? Like I research stuff based on the situation at hand. Like if somebody brings something to my attention, then I'll go do the research on it and see what I can come up with and what what I'm saying, what the evidence that I can find on that particular thing. But I haven't just objectively just looked at everything and said, you know what, this is what we have, and based on this is the determination. Yeah. So what you're saying is fair, but I'm gonna be honest, I'm not ready to do that yet. I ain't ready to be fair. I'm not ready to be fair.
I can dig it. I mean, when we look at Bible stories, you know what I'm saying, it's not to say that these stories doesn't have recollections, coming back from people, you know what I'm saying, from different, because you got different. They say these 12 tribes, was 12, different, groups of people, groups of Canaanite, people who was like, you know what, we're gonna, create our own, nation. Society, and that happened during the late Bronze period when the collapse of Egypt was happening and the collapse of the land of Canaan was happening. So while that was happening, you had these group of people say, we're gonna step away from the system, and we're gonna create our own system. And they started living in the highlands of Israel and in the southern parts of Israel.
I'm saying now what you just said, right? I'm hearing what you're saying, right? But everything you're saying, I'm hearing through the biblical lens. Because what I'm hearing is like this is what they found, the evidence, and this kind of the narrative they were able to piece together based on the evidence they found, right? This nation was going down, this nation was going down, and these people established something.
Yeah, but we don't see because all right, now I'm gonna give you an example. Like for example, like in the Bible narrative, we see Joshua going around, a
campaign taking out the Canaanites.
But archaeology, that's not there.
The detail, but see, what you just said was these nations would start falling at the same. So Egypt fell, and the Canaanite nations are falling, and
it was an economic collapse.
Yeah. However, I mean that's what they're saying, but the Bible, but. I'm hearing the story like, okay, when they came out of Egypt fell because the Most High destroyed it. And then the Most High sent them to the land of Canaan. They start going to campaign, knocking down Jericho and all these different places. And so we see what you're saying, we see in history. These places fell at the same time this one group of 12 nations came together, which is, from my perspective, the Israelites. So it's like when you look at it just from a scientific historical thing, you don't have the details of what happened. And I'm saying the Bible's giving you the details.
It fill in some blanks.
You can't determine that through archaeology though.
Yeah, now
only through the stories of history.
What you see, and this is when I go back to saying that some things was embellished to fit you know, based off how they want to tell the story, which is nothing wrong. I'm not saying that's wrong. That's not. It's not wrong from a nation to be like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, this my hood, the hardest hood on earth.
It's nothing wrong.
That's just their perspective.
It's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And we should never think that because the Bible narrative, you know, is saying stuff happened this way, but then when we look into archaeology, Jericho didn't fall like that. Okay. You know what I'm saying? When we look into archaeology,
what you mean?
I'm saying,
I just saw something recently about the walls, how they found the walls of Jericho, and they can see that they did crumble. Like they just crumble. Recently unearthed those. So you saying it didn't fall
Jericho,
like what?
One of the oldest cities in the world. So if not the oldest city in the world.
Yeah. You know
what I'm saying?
Hold up, let me do this. We got
Yeah.
Hold up. All right. No. All right. Yeah, we're gonna have to wrap this up, man. So. We got to pick up where we left off because this is, you know, just a couple of things I want to go into too. I want to also, because what you're talking about, right? This idea that the Bible has to be flawless, otherwise it's not from God. It's not of God. God had nothing to do with it. It's all man. Yeah. I want to talk about that.
We can go into that.
I want to talk about because it made me think about because that comes up a lot in these back and forth I'll be having with brothers and sisters, people who I know. It's like, you know, there's a contradiction here.
Yeah.
This don't, this too, and it's like, you know, and I disagree. You know what I'm saying? Now, you know, there are some things, there are some discrepancies in the scriptures. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I will not sit here and say it's flawless. However, what I want to go into is why does that have to be the determination factor? Because you know, I think people have a misconceived notion of who and what God is. Yeah. And because it's not flawless, it's like God didn't do it because God would not never make, you know, do something that's not flawless. And there's a lot of things you got to understand because we're talking about a book that's a history that's been passed on orally and translated from one language to another language to another language to another language, and then English has evolved, consistently evolved. So let me call him back. All right, man. So we're gonna pick up right there. We're gonna wrap it up right there. Yeah. All right. Hey, this is an impromptu, totally unplanned conversation. He had no idea I even hit the record button at the time. Yeah. So y'all got this live and raw, man. We're going to be back with some more structured content later on. Peace and blessings. Say peace? Or something? Peace.
Just a broadcast. This is family right here. Laugh. Learn and be encouraged. Let go of all the fear. Bold faith.